assumption on which traditional education is based, that's from intelligence tests to degrees and so on, like Ivy League universities and stuff like that. So you were born into a situation, you get along with it, and you don't develop out of it, sort of. And with a growth mindset, the attitude is, I can learn everything. And we actually do not have that too often in schooling. It is something that we should nurture way more. So this means this fundamentally changes the way you assess in schools. I know that this is happening already in some places, and probably some of you already do that. We are talking about summative assessment. We're talking about having a look at the process of doing something, not at the result. We are having a look at how you develop. And guess what? Mistakes are a natural part of that. Mistakes are opportunities to learn and not ways to find a degree or to write a certificate. So this is essential. You cannot say, you did this wrong, you are done. This doesn't work anymore. Of course, you shouldn't say that at all, but you know what I'm talking about. It's not about having a limit that is set from the beginning, but it's about the possibilities of development. And this is all happening within the digital media context. Like on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitch, on YouTube, in gaming, on Roblox, in Fortnite, you name it. These are actually, I don't know if you followed the discussion about the metaverse for the last few years, with Facebook being called Meta now and doing all these VR headsets, and I almost said words that I shouldn't say. Stuff like that, you know? People having the idea on where we are going to spend our day, our evening in the digital world. Facebook is not going to be the metaverse. VR is not going to be the metaverse. Do you know why? Because the metaverse already exists. It is called Fortnite, you know? It is called Roblox. It is actually also called Counter-Strike and CSGO. And Rocket League and Call of Duty. Of course, they don't live it that much. They are pretty rigorous, closed systems. But in general, you can see games, and especially games as a service. That means games that you play forever. Like of course there's Counter-Strike 2 now, but there's not going to be a Fortnite 2 within the next few years, because they don't need to. Because they offer it as a service. They renew the game, they bring in new content all of the time. So this is a place to live. This is the place where you spend your free time. This is the place where you can develop relationships, where you develop skills, and so on and so on. Fortnite has been the place for one of the biggest concerts, music concerts, within the last few years. Hundreds of millions of viewers and listeners. This happened in Fortnite. There are actually amazing projects within Fortnite about racism, diversity, and so on in a game. This is possible. But that's just because it is already happening. The digital reality of young people, or of people being part of that gaming community, which is most people, is that the metaverse is happening already. We don't need a Facebook for that, or something like that. And that means digital media usage is a given. It's not something that you do when you get your phone back because you have listened to the teacher for like 2 hours. It's happening all the time. And it would be a benefit for education if we could properly implement that into our teaching. That doesn't mean that I say use Instagram in your classroom, or I don't know, do one of these funny teacher TikTok videos where they dance and stuff like that. Of course you can do that. But what it means is that you have to appreciate that this is everyday life. And of course you have to be critical. Of course you have to have a look at how social media, these 20-second spots, reduce our attention span. and stuff like that. Of course, this is relevant. We have to be aware that a platform like Roblox, a game for kids, is a place for racism, is a place for grooming, is a place for harassment, and that some of the kids who have great ideas and develop games on Roblox are actually doing modern slave work. We have to be aware of that. But at the same time, we cannot just say, well, this is all bad. You know, it's like horror movies in the 80s or metal bands in the 80s. I don't know if you were part of that culture. You need to listen to the records backwards and then there's the devil, you know, stuff like that. No, it's not. Of course there are dangers. And of course there are horrible people on the internet. Of course there are. But if we close our eyes and we just focus on the traditional paper-oriented content, this is not going to solve itself. And we actually deprive ourselves of a lot of great opinions. Innovation that has changed thoroughly throughout the last years, it is pretty simple. You need to be aware that if you want to be motivated, you need something that is called agency. So you have the impression that you are in charge of what you do. You also need relatedness. So you need to sort of have a relation to what is happening. And games are pretty good at that. They make you laugh, they make you cry, they make you scream, they make you hate others, they make you hate the game, but they also make you love it. And that's the important thing. We have a lot of challenges within the educational system. And maybe esports or, I don't know, a digital education might not be that easy to implement. In Germany and in Austria, people like to say, we've always done it this way. So that's a killer argument. I would like to do that now, we have always done it this way. You know, maybe you have heard of that. And this is going to change. It needs to change. And guess what? Young people don't care about education quite a lot. And they prepare for the future that we are heading to anyways. But it's not happening in the classroom. It's happening outside. And it might make sense to bring it into the classroom. I don't know if you've heard of the growth mindset before I mentioned it. It's a pretty common approach in psychologies nowadays. It was started by a psychologist called Carol Dweck in the US, and she defined these two different mindsets. Like there's a growth mindset and the fixed mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, then you try to avoid challenges, you give up easily, you see effort as fruitless or worse, ignore useful negative feedback, stuff like that. You want to avoid mistakes. Just don't make mistakes. And the growth mindset sees mistakes as an opportunity to grow, to develop more skills. There's a lot of literature on that. I think it's a bit too simplistic in my opinion. It's just like the good versus the bad, growth and being fixed. I don't know if it really applies today, but there's a lot to take away for working with gaming and entrepreneurship and so on. So if you try to translate that to the entrepreneurship sector, the growth mindset and entrepreneurship are definitely always connected. You cannot be an entrepreneur nowadays if you don't have a growth mindset. So just to give a quote here, it is necessary to give such information, such teaching to entrepreneurs for them to be successful, to overcome the largely ignored cognitive barriers preventing them from taking entrepreneurial action. Which just means if they don't get it, that it's about that it's about making mistakes, that it's about failing. There's this famous quote, failing forward. If you don't fail forward, you're not going to be an entrepreneur, because failing is inherent. For me, I am an entrepreneur. I do the Games Institute, whatever that means, and I'm so close to failing all the time. There are days that feel like, okay, I actually failed there, but there's going to be a next opportunity. Tomorrow, next week, in Rome, Barcelona, whatever.